welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable, real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode here on Real Estate Mogul MD. Today, our guest is a gynecologic oncologist who decided to start a tech company. Very interesting. And now she's designing and implementing medical applications in the metaverse. She's been doing robotic virtual surgery since 2005 and is comfortable in the virtual worlds. She started digital twin imaging and invested in sophisticated LiDAR scanning equipment, LiDAR scanning equipment. She scanned and edited everything she could just to become familiar with the technology. Then Uvalde, Texas, and the Robb Elementary School tragedy occurred. It was clear to our guests that first responders didn't have any idea of the interior of the school. That is when she pivoted her company to scan the interior and exterior of schools and create a 3D model with first responder information embedded. This cloud-based model is available 24/7 for training, and addition is deployed to any iPhone, Android, tablet, or computer through the existing emergency dispatch software. Everybody, please welcome Dr. Maria Bell. Maria, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. So from the outside in, that little introduction there, how was that? Does that kind of give you a summary of kind of the shift from, you're still practicing medicine, right?
I am still a full-time practitioner. Yes.
Nice. And then now with the tech company, so it's very interesting how you've got full-time medicine and you're an entrepreneur with the tech company as well too. So excited to talk about this. If you could just let our listeners know.
I can't quit my day job.
Yeah, you can't. Interesting. Let me dig in on that before we get started. You can't, or you don't want to?
I can't because I'm self-financing the company.
Interesting. Okay. So, one, and I've lived this a lot in my personal life. One is, so your, income from being a practitioner is funding the startup, basically. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So for the listeners here, just tell us a little bit about, a brief summary of your medical journey up to this point.
So I grew up in South Dakota, and that's where I currently live. I went to undergrad medical school in South Dakota and then did my residency in OBGYN at the University of Chicago. And then I did my fellowship in GYN oncology at the University of Alabama. I was a faculty member at Louisiana State University Medical School and came back to South Dakota in 2000. So that's my journey for medical education. But then I went back and got my master's in public health from Hopkins. I was very interested in working with the Native American population here in South Dakota and did quite a bit, spent about a decade of my life serving that population. And then it was clear to me that there's more to public health to help these people. And so I felt like I needed to understand the socioeconomic piece. So I did my MBA, and then I'm here.
Here we are. And in that journey, tell me a little bit about the robotic virtual surgery. Where did that start, and where does it exist right now?
So I was fortunate in that I joined Sanford Health, that was known as Sioux Valley at that time. And they were very progressive and forward thinking and purchased one of the first Da Vinci robots. So I was one of the first GYN oncologists in the country that was using the robot, and I was at the right place at the right time. I published and I've taught all over the world. Most people, they wonder why I'm here in Sioux Falls. And I'm like, well, it's been a great academic position for me. And as far as the technology, it's been wonderful.
Very interesting.
So I started in 2005.
Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
So I started in 2005 and have done over 5,000 cases. I did the first robotic hysterectomy in the Russian Federation. That was quite interesting.
Oh, wow. Wow. So from complete layman perspective, from the outside looking in, I am not a physician. I have no experience in the robotic virtual surgery arena. This, you said the Da Vinci robot, and this is literally a arm in place of yours performing a procedure where you're controlling via joysticks, for lack of better terms, correct?
Wow. Exactly. So there's actually foot pedals and two basically joysticks, if you want to call it that. Yeah. The robot is physically connected to the console. So I'm seated at the console. It's like a giant Oculus, if you know what an Oculus is. The virtual reality goggles. Yep. So yep. I'm looking into the console and seeing the inside of my patient. And then I'm controlling all of the instruments with the joysticks and the foot pedals.
So the benefit of this is now you're not basically hands-on with a screen, right? With the Oculus, you're submersed into the view.
Sure. So when I'm looking through the console, I'm seeing in 3 dimensions. Mm-hmm. And that's particularly important for very intricate surgeries where depth perception is very crucial. So it makes it safer to do the surgery versus doing it with standard laparoscopy where we only see in 2D. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. So 3D, from 2D to 3D. Very interesting. It helps me understand the process, and some of the listeners aren't aware of this. I'm sure that helps as well too. So this technology, tell us how like the transition between the actual patient technology and then scanning the rooms, scanning the building. So how did that go from basically clinical practice to scanning rooms?
Well, I became interested in the metaverse. I actually purchased a ticket to this, and I wanted to see it for myself, what was happening in this world. And there are a lot of big vendors already in there, big companies that you would recognize. And I thought maybe there would be a medical application or medical services that could be done in the metaverse. And that's how I started. Then I had to figure out how to get real things into the virtual world. And it's actually quite complicated. And that's where the LiDAR scanning comes in, where you generate a data point cloud of a physical thing in the real world, and then you can manipulate it into the virtual world. And that's how I learned about the technology.
Very interesting. And then with the school tragedy, now you have this, a need, right? Where there's a need, and you implemented this type of scanning into that need. And now you've layered in the security piece where it's embedding information in for first responders. And very interesting, because I was in a very substantial car accident. It's been 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks ago. And from my own experience, being on or in a moment of chaos, right? It's chaotic. And now looking back, I have the experience of seeing, like, the first responder is absolutely amazing, because when you're in that moment of just pure chaos and adrenaline, they're there and they're accustomed to seeing certain things, and it just makes it helpful. But what you're doing is providing another platform for them to be prepared which is very interesting. The one thing I noticed in that traumatic scene that I was a part of, there were different responders, but there wasn't a correlation between the different groups. So that made it a little difficult. So this technology that you're providing is actually that forefront or existing thing that allows them to have a better feel of what they're going into.
Right. And we have all disciplines of the first responder community involved in the process, and they can get information that's specific for them. If they don't want to see all the EMS stuff and the police want to see certain things, then they can limit what they're seeing in the model. But we've done this hand in hand with school administration as well as first responders to create the model. I have not seen a first responder who hasn't said this is an amazing product. There is nothing in the 3D realm at all. So we are the first company providing 3D training. It's just been an interesting experience. And, most first responders have not been in the school to which they are deployed for an emergency. I didn't realize that. I thought that would be kind of a normal thing, that maybe every year you tour a school, but they don't do that. I mean, they have too much to do. So, providing a very accurate 3D, they can walk through the school and become very familiar with it. So I think that is safer for the first responder. Actually, the SWAT team in Iowa tested the model, and they had 3 teams that went from the entry into the building to when they put 2 simulation bullets into the target. The average time for the 3 teams that did not have the model was 7.5 minutes. And the average time for the teams that had the model and knew the room assignment, they did it in 31 seconds. So there was about a 15x difference in the speed at which the first responder could do what they needed to do.
And then, I mean, there's so many intangibles, if that's the right word, of that piece too, like the safety, the confidence, there's the risk piece of it. So not only time, but all those other things that go along with that. Very interesting. And this platform, Maria, is digitalwinimaging.com. So if somebody's interested in this, whether for their practice, for their school system, for their children, maybe even churches too, I'm sure it could have some benefit. So many places have benefits from this. They can find you at www.digitalwinimaging.com, WINIMAGING.com, correct?
Digital twin imaging. Yes.
Digital twin. I said digital win. Sorry, I missed the T. Sorry about that. And we've got a little bit of a delay in the signal too, so I apologize to the listeners there. Digital twin imaging. I've got it now. That's it. DIGITALTWINIMAGING. The wonderful world of listening and trying to follow along, right? So we've got that. They can reach that. There's huge benefit for this, and again, filling that need. And it kind of brings me into my next area here, this idea of being a full-time physician and startup entrepreneur. What are some of your biggest challenges that you've got doing that currently?
Obviously, time is a premium. My children are grown, so I don't have, children at home to take care of. But, I enjoy working on the business. I put in long days for my clinical practice, and then I come home and, put in several more hours every day for the business. But it's exciting when it's your own baby, so to speak, so it's fun.
Very cool. So time being one of the challenges, what's been one of the biggest opportunities for you being, making that leap into the entrepreneur world?
I think it's just making, I went to get my MBA and really didn't use it for any particular reason. And I always just told myself, if I have to do it. I sat in my office for, a couple of days before I pulled the trigger and, made the S Corp and really started to make a commitment financially. I put my cap at X number of dollars. I'm actually above that at this point, but, but as I saw it grow and the potential continue to grow, then I was willing to put more financial risk into the project. So, it's going well. So we're very pleased.
Very good. And your MBA was business management too, correct?
It was actually health sector kind of emphasis.
Right.
That's what I did, but really didn't use it until now. But all those things are helping me now.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have
the other thing?
Yes, go ahead.
The other thing that I started at the same time, because I also have this public health kind of bent to my personality, is I started a 501c3 called Secured My School, and it allows us to get federal grants as well as tax deductible donations. So if a school doesn't have the funding, then we can collaborate with them to get like a STEM grant, which is there's a national push for, science, technology. Or if parents wanted to purchase it, they could get a tax deduction. So I wanted to make sure that all schools would have the ability to get this technology.
Very cool. Very cool. And would you have any suggestions or recommendations for any of the listeners out there who are full-time medicine and have an idea? Because as an entrepreneur, I know personally, like, we have a very unique set of experiences that lead us and basically put us in front of certain opportunities. And that's where that need comes from, because of these chain of experiences. Do you have any advice for anybody out there that's listening now that has that unique set of experiences that's led them to an opportunity? Well, how do you make the leap? And what are some steps that you would do differently?
I think it's just, I think the financial piece was probably the biggest issue for me. And I just had to, formulate a plan on what's the maximum amount of money I'm willing to spend, and when do I expect to be cash flow positive. So I've set up, 3 years, I want to be cash flow positive, which I think is a reasonable time frame for a startup. And it was just setting parameters and then finding the right people to come into the company. And it's been actually quite serendipitous, the people that have entered my company. And it's interesting how they got there. But the folks that are in my business are very computer savvy, but they're very artistic. So they love what this company's doing, and they've chosen this company over big tech companies because of what our mission is. Yeah.
It says a lot too. And when you have that path where your values align with the mission and vision of the company, then you build that culture that's a driving force, because the why is bigger. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had a guest on the show not too long ago. I'll actually connect you with him, because he something similar where he's in the app world, but making that jump from full-time practitioner to tech entrepreneur, right? So I'll connect you with him. Maybe he'll have some suggestions for you, because he's done practicing medicine. He's focused basically on the tech piece now. So that interesting part, when we first started, I dove into the question on, is it because you can't or because you don't want to? Which one is it? But it's interesting because of the way that being a practitioner is funding the startup. So it's basically your investment. And Maria, we are on this show called Real Estate Mogul MD. So I love to kind of tiptoe into the real estate world. In your journey, have you had experience with real estate beyond owning your own home?
Not really. I think, I had a couple of rental properties that we've sold those. Interesting, though, this is kind of in the real, one of our verticals is actually DTI Build, and we are focusing on construction and the entire insurance cycle from underwriting to claims. And for construction, we can scan the building prior to sheetrock going up, and then after it's finished, so that they know exactly what's behind the walls. And so it's helpful from that standpoint. As far as construction, that would be the only other kind of real estate thing that I have ventured into.
Very interesting. You can talk more about the rentals, but that just made me curious. In my experience as a general contractor, as a builder, as design build, that's like my world. Interesting to know, like, to have these, and we would always do that on projects. I would go through with a camera and take pictures of everything before that sheetrock goes up. Mm-hmm. I'd mark everything on the floor. I could take those pictures. So it's interesting to me how gynecologic oncologist has somehow connected with this thing. Hey, the insurance company one would love this because they could know what's behind the walls. And there's so many more things. How in the world did you come across that opportunity?
Just because I could see what it was used for. And then I just started to think, well, why wouldn't we use it for this? And what's interesting about the model, you would love it because you actually can communicate through the model. So if you have a subcontractor that you need to message them about a certain thing that they need to fix, you can put a pin in the model with your message, and then it'll send him a link or her a link. And when they hit the link, it takes them right to that part of the model. And then when they fix it, they can take a picture and put it back into the model. So all documentation stays within the model, which is great for insurers and for general contractors.
So it's like a real world. It's basically taking building information systems, the BIS stuff, and then placing it into the metaverse. So you're surfacing these models with real world images.
Yes.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's cool where you could pin stuff. So just drilling into the cost effective, how often can we update these shots, the full shots in the construction world? Because we've got we work with clients where we acquire single family residential properties for them, done for them 100%. So you could sit in South Dakota. I could build your portfolio and manage it in one of our markets, and you would never ever step foot on the site. So how can I keep you updated? Right. Right now it's pictures every week and that kind of thing. But in this perspective, it would be very interesting because if we could roll through and take the LiDAR scan of it, is it cost effective,
I guess I'd have to run the numbers, but right now, for instance, we are doing a big hockey arena, and I guess I just need more work to work with more of the contractors to see what value it is. Right. One of the industries that we're working in is pipe welding. And so we have scanned basically a big mechanical room with a lot of pipes that are coming in and out. And it took my tech 20 minutes to do that. And we charged them $1,500. We didn't really know what to charge them. Right. And he said to us, you didn't charge me enough because
how valuable.
Saving one mistake is about $10,000. He said it's a $10,000. One mistake is $10,000. So I obviously have to get feedback from the contractor. How valuable is this for you?
Right. Yeah. For us managing rehab projects and being, 1,000 miles away from the project. So very interesting how all of that comes together. If you had one thing that you could suggest to somebody that's thinking about this, I don't think we have tacked this question yet. What's one thing that you would do differently in the startup? Practicing full time, what's one thing you would have done differently? Making that jump.
maybe I should have done it sooner.
I hear that a lot. Yeah.
I'm 60, so I wish I was, 45.
You're 60 years old?
I'm 60 years old.
Holy cow. For the listeners out there, you look absolutely amazing for 60 years old. I would have never have guessed that.
Well, thank you. But, obviously, I think this could be a really big company. And, I won't be able to see it all the way through, obviously. But I think it's going to be a big company.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. So sometimes even in that journey of whether it's medicine or being an entrepreneur, there's this balance that we have to have, and making sure that you're enjoying yourself as you see this vision through. So, and complimenting you on your looks, you can't tell like you've been fighting, because a lot of times if you overstress yourself, it comes through. Like, Maria, think about like when you see a president go into office and then 4 years later you see them leave office, it's like, it's a crazy exchange. And being an entrepreneur can do that to you. Being in medicine can do that to you. And it can really happen when you pair the two together. To really play that effect on you. But starting sooner, that's
because I love. I think it's because I love what I do. When you love what you do, it's not work, right? And I still love what I do in medicine.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, and sometimes too, when we talk with people, they go into a different arena in the entrepreneur world or passive income or whatever, it allows them to keep focusing on what they love to do and not what they have to do. So there's pieces in each that we absolutely love, but then there's the redundancy of the things that we have to do.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, tell me just a little bit before we go, a little bit of your experience with those rental properties. If you had them and then you sold them, I'm curious, what'd you like about having rental properties?
Well, my ex-husband and I, we would actually do a lot of the work ourselves. So we would go in and strip carpet out and and refinish hardwood floors and put in new kitchens. We did a lot of the work ourselves.
Did you like it? Is that why you did it?
I guess I would say, at some point I just said, it's not worth my time. My time is money.
Yes.
So I finally just said, I'm not going to do that,
Yep.
But when we were first married, we didn't have much money. And so we would, pick up these little rental houses and rent them out. One thing I will tell you is I will never rent to 4 college-age boys again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But
just a story before you go on about that. I went to Western Michigan University, and being in real estate, always have my ears perked up. And there's certain areas where you cannot rent with somebody you're not related to, right? So you can't if you're not related to the other person, then you can't rent in that space. And this was all prior Airbnb stuff, so it was kind of that way of limiting. So there were neighborhoods that were more family orientated. And then on the other side of it, there's people that rent out per room. So that's the opposite of it.
Wow. Yeah.
So you learned that lesson where you don't rent to 4 college age students, right? I could imagine what would have happened in that house. What were some things that you really liked about the rentals though?
I think it is fun to do the remodeling yourself when you do see the change in what was, the bones are good, but they just neglected it for a long time.
Yeah.
I remember one place where the woman was like a really terrible smoker, and just the windows had that brown, greasy, nasty thing.
Windows. Yes.
And it was like, it felt so good just to rip the carpet out, get the drapes, get all that smoky, icky stuff out of there. That was good.
Yep. It's awesome when you walk into houses like that. Now, we've bought some doozies. We have a nationwide acquisition company, and we fix and flipped, and we've done all that. So I've bought some of the nastiest houses you could ever imagine. within the first 10 minutes, Maria, this feeling that you get of making the house better, you can walk into some of those houses like that and you could pull the drapes off the wall, and it's an instant. As soon as you let the light in, it's like, what? It's all better. Now it may still stink, but the light comes in, it's still better. What, if you could elaborate on, what was the reason that you decided to liquidate that asset?
I got divorced.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing.
I felt like that was coming there. So sometimes it's really difficult in those scenarios, and we've acquired in those scenarios too. So when you're trying to liquidate assets to split and all that kind of thing, so that happens. But the passive income side of it, and it's always, I ask that question just because passive income is awesome. And I always tell everybody to build a system that doesn't require you, and then hold on to it forever, right? Because there's a depreciation exchange ways to do that. But obviously there's certain situations where you can't do that, extenuating circumstances where that thing had to be liquidated. Now, you are in a position where you're investing your money into a company that you own. So basically you're building a multiplier, right? You're building a multiplier in your investment. And from my experience talking with financial advisors and other investors, it's like when you have that, it makes more sense to invest into that than it does real estate, because you have this multiple, you're passionate, you're actively involved in it. Beyond that, when this thing stabilizes out, do you think that you would get back into real estate at some time? I got a delay there.
I'm not sure. I mean, my ex was the one who always did the management, which I have no interest in managing. So I would do it for an investment, but not for management,
Yep. So finding that solution where you didn't have to manage could potentially, and it's great. Like I say, as that thing stabilizes, when you run out of opportunity to invest in that company, maybe then there's a way to diversify. And I think I tell all of our listeners and you as well, where it's like finding that avenue, there's a solution for you, and diversifying is good. And it doesn't mean that you have to chase down rent, fix toilets, pull out carpet, or smell somebody's smoky rooms. There's all these things it's just like with the imaging, like you had this idea, you had this vision that doesn't fit in a box because nobody built this box before. And it's the same way with investing in real estate. You figure out where you want to be, and then you develop that solution from there back, right? So the same thing. So I'd encourage that for everybody out there. Who is one person that that you think the listeners should know?
I know personally,
or mentor, or somebody you've picked up a lot of great advice from.
Well, my dad, I would say, but he's deceased, but amazing guy. I would say my medical mentors, I've had amazing medical mentors. Dr. Ed Partridge was my fellowship director. And he was a big influence in my life. Dr. Arthur Herbst just passed away. He was a chairman at the University of Chicago. Big impact, gave me the break in my career that just changed the whole trajectory of my career.
So these mentors in the medical arena have exponentially increased your velocity. Is that fair to say? I have a question for you then, Maria. Do you have a mentor in the tech area in developing the tech company? Would you think that would be a good thing to have? Now the challenge is who and where, how, right?
Well, so I'm actually applying for a grant for women entrepreneurs through the Cartier company. And why I'm very interested in that is because they really hook you up with a lot of other entrepreneurs that have been successful, women entrepreneurs. So I'm hoping that I can get this grant and start to work with other, like-minded people.
Yes. I was just mentioning to somebody yesterday, I'm like biting my tongue. I feel like I give so much unsolicited advice, but if I could just say that to you of expanding your association outside of physicians, outside of who you may think, but finding that person or that group that can lift you and elevate you, similar to what you did in medicine. I think as you are so passionate and in love with this direction that digital twin imaging is going, finding that mentor could take you to a whole new level. And, and then it wouldn't be 3 years, for that thing to be cash flow and be flush with cash. When you get to that point, there's this crazy piece where capitalism and socialism, there's this gray area that produce amazing things for people. So it sounds like a fun place to be. I see the smile on your face mentioning that, like thinking of that in that direction. So, best wishes for you, Maria, in this direction. The helping first responders, I think that is definitely, a mission to be completed for sure. And thank you out there to all the first responders, police, fire, SWAT, everybody that puts their life on the line every day. Because I know being in those situations, it gives me goosebumps to think how you feel when you see that first responder in that traumatic moment, that feeling you get, that finally rescue, savior, and you're helping that with this vision and digital twin imaging. So thank you so much for your time today, Maria.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And to the listeners out there, you can see more of digital twin imaging on the .com. Just type that in, www.digitaltwinimaging.com. You can find Maria there. Take a look at it. If you have a practice, if you have an office, if you have any need of or thought of a situation that could use this type of technology, reach out. And even in the insurance piece, I think that's very interesting. Insurance and building as well, too, is a whole nother arena. Awesome technology here. Thank you for listening today. We appreciate it. If you have any questions for me, have any topics that you want to hear, anything about real estate, entrepreneurial perspectives, any questions, mentorships, anything, info@physicianwealthsystems.com. You can reach us there. And wow, just thanks for giving us a listen today. Till next time.